So, what if the entire history of humanity, as we know it, is completely backwards? Seriously, think about it. What if instead of slowly crawling our way up from, primitive beginnings to this modern intelligence we have today, we're actually experiencing a devolution? That is the absolutely wild, provocative question at the heart of the narrative we are looking at today. The source material we're exploring proposes a radical alternate history, one where humanity has actually fallen from a much higher state of spiritual being, a time when we supposedly lived in complete, literal harmony with the earth and the cosmos.
Welcome back to another Explainer. Today, we're taking a highly analytical but super fascinating look into a vast, esoteric narrative that has honestly captivated spiritual seekers all over the globe, the mythology of Lemuria. We're going to unpack a sprawling, complex source that claims to reveal a totally suppressed spiritual history. Now, whether you view this as literal hidden truth or just a profound psychological mythology, it offers an incredible window into human longing and alternative spirituality. Our goal today? We're going to systematically break down exactly what this source is presenting, piece by piece.
To make this massive lore easy to digest, we've got a clear roadmap. We'll hit 5 main beats: the forgotten continent, cosmic origins and frequencies, the fall into separation, suppressed history and evidence, and finally, the modern reawakening. Let's get right into it. All right, starting with Chapter 1, the forgotten continent. So, what exactly was Lemuria according to this text? Well, geographically, it's described as this massive, lost civilization located out in the Pacific Ocean, a giant continent that supposedly connected modern-day Hawaii, Easter Island, Fiji, and even parts of India and the Americas. But the narrative is really clear that Lemuria was far more than just geography. It was essentially a living frequency. We're talking about a civilization that existed way, way before the famed Atlantis, operating in complete harmony with the Earth. They didn't build empires, they didn't wage wars. Instead, the claim is they built energy and they healed. They didn't view the Earth as a resource to extract from, but as a living, breathing entity. There's a quote from the source that really hits the nail on the head here. Lemuria wasn't just a lost continent, it was a lost consciousness. The language used to describe these people is incredibly evocative. According to the text, Lemurians didn't fracture themselves into ego and separation. No, they lived entirely by intuition. Their communication wasn't about spoken words, it was vibration and heart-based telepathy. The whole idea is that truth was something you felt, not something you proved, and their technology harmonized with nature rather than destroying it. It's this beautifully pure, unified vision of existence.
Which naturally brings us to Part 2, cosmic origins and frequencies.
So where did these deeply intuitive telepathic beings actually come from? Enter the core esoteric concept of starseeds. The claim here is that Lemurians weren't just ancient humans, they were hybrids, literally earthborn in form, starborn in essence. The narrative suggests that Lemuria was originally seeded by interdimensional, highly advanced beings from star systems like the Pleiades, Sirius, and Lyra. And they didn't come to conquer. They supposedly volunteered to lower their vibration just to anchor light into our dense physical realm. Because of this, the material suggests that a lot of people walking around today are actually starseeds, souls bearing this ancient energetic imprint who communicate via resonance. It kind of explains why some people just feel this inexplicable magnetic pull to the night sky, you know? To help wrap our heads around this cosmic history, let's look at the timeline they lay out. It starts eons ago with the Earth being seeded by those interdimensional star beings. That kicked off a golden era of unity consciousness lasting for thousands of years. But then, in early prehistory, a really subtle shift happens. There's this growing curiosity with the material world and a slow pull toward ego. Fast forward to the ancient past, and this shift results in physical destruction and the birth of the much denser subsequent civilization of Atlantis. And the whole shebang brings us right to the present day, which the source frames as a totally crucial era of modern spiritual awakening.
And that timeline perfectly tees up our third chapter, the fall into separation.
So how does a literal utopia just collapse? The source sets up a really stark dichotomy to explain this. On one hand, you have the Lemurian ideal, totally heart-based, rooted in unity, using telepathy, living in harmony. And on the other hand, you have Atlantis, which the text claims was actually born out of Lemuria's fall. Atlantis represents everything opposite. It's intellect-driven, highly hierarchical, super reliant on verbal communication, and completely obsessed with external control. Now, the text describes this transition not as some sudden, fiery explosion. Actually, scratch that. It's more like a really slow, tragic, spiritual unraveling, where those intuitive gifts just slowly faded away, and the sacred balance tilted. But the real kicker is how they explain the physical destruction of the continent itself. Operating on that classic esoteric rule of as above, so below, the narrative argues that the earthquakes, floods, and tectonic shifts that sank Lemuria, they were absolutely not random natural disasters. They were a direct physical reflection of a massive spiritual imbalance. The Earth was literally just mirroring the fall of human consciousness. It's framed as a karmic agreement, a collective decision by human souls to experience separation and polarity, all so humanity could eventually learn from it and rise again. Okay, so you might be wondering about proof. That brings us to part 4, suppressed history and evidence. What tangible traces does the source claim were actually left behind? Well, they point to a handful of really specific global hotspots. First up is Mount Shasta in California. It's described as way more than just a mountain. It's supposedly a massive spiritual portal and a literal inner Earth stronghold for surviving Lemurian frequencies. Then there's Easter Island, where they claim those famous Moai statues were actually built by surviving Lemurians to guard encoded stone wisdom. Hawaii is huge in this lore too. Ancient chants, the hula, and the deep, deep reverence for volcanoes and water are all said to echo the old Lemurian way of life. And finally, the text points to global megaliths and stone circles that are perfectly aligned to the stars, basically calling them cosmic breadcrumbs left across the Earth. Now, obviously, if all this evidence is just sitting there, why on earth isn't it in our history books? Well, the source leans into a pretty heavy conspiracy theory here, perfectly summed up in this quote. They give you wars and timelines but not vibration and resonance because knowledge of this kind makes you ungovernable. The argument is that modern academia and global power structures are deliberately suppressing the story of Lemuria. The claim is that if humans actually realized their true, divine, telepathic nature, if we remembered we could heal with energy, the entire modern system of hierarchy, commercialized medicine, and authority would just completely shatter.
Which brings us to the final and most actionable part of the narrative. Chapter 5, The Modern Reawakening.
So what does this mythological history actually mean for us watching today? The source claims we are right at a threshold, living in an echo of Lemuria's return. And a massive part of that return is the resurgence of the divine feminine. The video directly connects modern spiritual trends. Think about the explosion of Reiki, crystal therapy, sound baths, intuitive guidance. It connects all of that to a reawakening of this suppressed Lemurian energy. It frames the divine feminine not as a gender thing, but as an energetic focus on intuition, fluidity, nurturing, and receptivity. And they claim this energy is finally coming back to balance out what has become a very hypermasculine, structurally rigid modern world. For anyone who feels a calling to this, the source actually provides some very specific, actionable steps to reactivate this dormant cellular memory. Step 1, reconnect intimately with nature. Go barefoot, touch some ancient trees, or just go sit by the ocean. Step 2 is practicing fluid, wordless meditation. Basically, letting go of rigid rules and instead dancing, journaling without any logic, or even singing nonsense syllables to bypass the intellect entirely. And hey, whatever helps shake off a stressful Tuesday, right? Step 3 involves meditating with specific Lemurian seed crystals, which are supposedly frequency holders that trigger ancient insights. And step 4 is to pay super close attention to vivid, experiential dreams, viewing them as literal echoes of your forgotten soul history. From an analytical perspective, it's absolutely fascinating to see how this narrative is being utilized right now. The source explicitly funnels its audience toward further resources. The creator encourages viewers who feel this resonance to go join an Insights Academy newsletter to unlock deeper hidden knowledge, and they even offer a free copy of the Kybalion, which is a classic esoteric text. This perfectly demonstrates the standard architecture of online spiritual content today. You have this incredibly compelling, high-production mythological storytelling, and it's paired directly with a specific call to action to draw seekers deeper into a dedicated community and an educational funnel. And that leaves us with a really profound final question to chew on as we wrap up this explainer. When we look at this incredible lore of lost continents, star seeds, and suppressed history, what's really going on? Are we literally witnessing a true spiritual reactivation of dormant cellular memory? Or are we looking at humanity's timeless, deeply psychological longing for a world of pure connection, unity, and meaning? Is it just a massive rejection of the isolation we all feel in modern society? Whichever way you look at it, the mythology of Lemuria is a powerful mirror reflecting exactly what so many feel is missing in the world today. Thank you so much for joining me, and as always, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep analyzing.